Welcome to the Learning Experience powered by CAST. I'm one of your hosts, Kelly Suding.
And I'm Luis Perez.
And I'm Brian Dean.
We are three educators here ready to break down barriers until learning has no limits. Let's do this.
Hey, Brian, how you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, brother? I'm feeling fine, and I'm in the grind. You know what I mean? Like I'm always large and in charge. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited for what summer has to bring. Summer is traveling season, and so it's also conference season. So to me, I always look forward to that, right? And I think we have one of our own conferences coming up.
Yeah, there is a conference coming up. Let me see. UDL Con International, and that's July 22nd and 23rd. And it's going to be a barn burner, man. I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be like summer camp like old school summer camp with a lot of UDL friends.
Yeah, I just love summer because, a lot of the work that we do is virtual these days.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you have that opportunity to see people in person and give them a big hug and fist bump, whatever, just make that connection. And, it's just a unique opportunity that I always look forward to during the summer. And speaking of traveling, this episode is going to be a little bit different because our third amigo or amiga is traveling. She's on assignment, we like to say in the news business, right? So
there
she's
you go.
On assignment.
There you go. She's out in the field. She's on like a 2-week tour of the Midwest. Yeah.
So hopefully you all are, if you're at one of those places where Kelly is, you run into her and, like I said, give her a big hug. It's important to connect with each other in any way that we can. So, but today you just get Brian and I. So
that's right.
Let's see how this works out.
Good luck. Good luck.
And you're getting us talking about a topic that both of us are really passionate about, right? Digital literacy, so important, right? So Brian, let's just get started by giving the people a good definition, a simple definition or plain language definition. What is digital literacy in your mind?
Yeah, I wish that it was a simple definition, right? But I mean, I think that digital literacy kind of boils down to three pretty large areas. There's a bunch of different frameworks, but basically it's being able to evaluate information that's coming, right? And think about it critically, analyze it for results, analyze it for clarity, analyze it for appropriate sources. It's really about understanding the information in the digital landscape and being able to kind of discern its accuracy and discern whether it's misinformation or disinformation or its intent. I would say that would be probably my best definition of digital literacy, I think.
That's a fantastic one. It's really concise and it really hits a lot of important areas, right? So to me, the only thing I would add is that it's informed decision making.
Yeah.
Right? Because often we are consuming information to do something with it, right? Whether it's make a personal decision or a decision for others so that it impacts others. So we want to make sure that those decisions are informed by the best information that's available, right? And that like you said, we've evaluated that information with a critical eye because, again, those decisions have an impact. And we want to make sure that they're based on accurate, timely information. And we'll get into all of that later on, what makes up, good digital literacy practice. But for me, and I also add the idea of citizenship, right? Because we don't exist in a vacuum and what we do affects others. So we want to make sure that we are doing things based on accurate information.
And there's a cat out there named Hooley who kind of came up, that's Hooley, that kind of came up with 7 kind of areas of digital literacy. And just quickly, those are changing, and that refers to the ability to adapt, collecting, being able to gather information and utilize it, critiquing, and that's one of the big pieces, evaluating the credibility and reliability of information, connecting, and that focuses on building and maintaining professional networks online, including different platforms, communication or communicating, and that's effective communication in digital environments, and creating what is the responsibility of creating and showcasing skills, your skills in a digital world, and then finally curating, and that's how do you manage and maintaining cohesive kind of presence, and information, and how do you use it, right? And one of the big pieces that, if you notice in that kind of like that 7 C's framework, there's not anything that says like critical thought or critical evaluation. I mean, it's kind of hinted at there, but I think it's something that we probably should just state. Like, if you exist in a digital world, which we all do, and you are consuming information, you have to be critical about that information that comes in. And I think one of those other pieces is you have to decide, is this misinformation or is this disinformation? And misinformation and disinformation can both do a lot of harm, but I think their intents are very different.
So
I
tell
think
me a
that,
little bit more about that, Brian. What do you mean by that, the intent?
well, when we think about misinformation, misinformation might be a tweet that's taken out of context, or the wrong dates are given, or something like that. Its intent isn't to be nefarious or isn't to push an agenda. It's just like a typo. It's a mistake, right? Now that can lead to some problems, right? Like if you accidentally were to flip numbers on a code or something like that, it could cause problems. But disinformation, I think there the intent is more around how do I push an agenda, or how do I skew the information that's out there to fit my agenda, or how do I put out false information, just deliberately false information that's created to mislead and deceive and manipulate others. I think that in today's world, especially when we look at AI and we look at, especially, gosh, did you see like Google's VO3? That new video maker is insane, and it's easy to quote unquote deep fake a ton of things. They have there's like a 4-minute movie that has no human actors in it. I think it's called like Influenders, and it's about influencers at the end of the world. It's kind of funny. It's put out by the Door brothers, but there are no human beings in that. It is just straight type and prompt. Like, when we live in that world, disinformation becomes this new beast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and this is not new, right? It's just taken on a new name if you go back in history. And I'm a political scientist, right? So
Yeah.
I've studied politics and political systems. We used to call this propaganda.
Yeah.
So propaganda is, you are putting it out, and it's not a typo. It's not like, oh, I just shared something by mistake. There is an intent behind it, right? You are sharing that information in order to change minds in a very intentional way, so that you accomplish the goal that you have in mind. And so I think what's happening is, with the flood of information, that's what's changed the environment, right?
I was just going to ask you what you thought, with a historical perspective, because like you said, there's always been propaganda, but why is it so prolific now, it feels?
It's the amount of information. It's just the many ways in which we can share information, and that's good in a way, right? There is much more information we can at our fingertips. There's some positives to that, but at the same time, it's really possible for noise to get in over time. And so if we're not careful, if we're not like being actively monitoring our feeds, things start to be shared, on Facebook. How often do you see a meme and it grabs your attention because it's done in a very intentional way? And a lot of it comes down to emotion. Trying to say, oh, you need to do this right away. So it kind of preys on that idea of like, everything is critical, everything is urgent.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
You know what I mean? Like, oh,
yeah.
You need to respond now, and
right, or it's so danger ridden. It's like 50 things that are wrong with your tap water.
Yeah,
and you're like, I didn't even know. I've been drinking this stuff for years, or whatever it may be. Yeah.
So yeah, that flood of information coming at us, it's really easy for things to get filtered in. Like you said, in both ways, misinformation and disinformation. So it really is upon us, or the burden in a way is on us to always be critically thinking about what's coming into our feeds, and even like there's this idea of echo chambers too,
Yeah,
where
sure.
algorithms can really push you into a certain feed of information that really fits a certain viewpoint. So it's just important to be sort of on guard, because this is just part of living in the social media rich environment that we live in.
But it's so overwhelming, right? Like if you look at the first part, so you find a news source or you find, an information source that you're okay with. Like you're like, oh, I feel like they're really, reporting just straight facts. They're not trying to spin it, whatever it may be. But then like they get bought out by somebody who does have an
That's true.
agenda. Right. And then you're like, wait a minute, I've always trusted such and such, site or information. And now, like, I'm just now finding out that they were actually bought out by somebody with an agenda that I don't agree with, or with an
Yeah.
agenda that is, contrary to the way that I live my life. Now, what do I do? Now I have to go back and find it. I think that like that's one of the hardest parts is like how. Well, first of all, how do you know? What's a quick and easy way of knowing the information is good, or the information is not biased?
Well, I know that you're going to share. You've already shared a valuable framework for us, but you're going to
Sure.
share some tools that we can use to evaluate information. But I think it's first of all, stop. Like, just give yourself a pause. Like, think about the information that's coming in, and in general, stop, take a deep breath, and then look for a couple of sources, right? So
Oh, I do like that. Yeah.
in the sense that like, I always again in my feed, because I'm in politics, I even though I do assistive technology and accessibility, once a political scientist, always a political scientist.
Right. Right.
So I love to follow politics, and that's one of the areas where there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And basically, my approach is, if it sounds too good to be true, if it looks too good to be true, check it.
Yeah.
But I try to do that in general. Try to find another source. Typically with politics, I look at a site like Snopes,
Yeah.
where they fact check things, and see if I can get some citations, or they can point me to some places where I can verify that information, right? So verification is really important. Can I verify this from another source?
Well, yeah, I think that's key. I wonder too, like, so what I tend to do is like, I tend to look at all news sites, right? Like, I look at a couple different ones. Some of them are absolutely not within my belief system, but I think it's important to understand that, right? To understand that side. And I know if they're talking about it in the news sources that support, that support the same ideals and ideas that I do, and they're talking about it in the other sources that maybe are not aligned with mine, I know that this is something then, right? Like I know, like if both groups are talking about it, I know that there's at least some truth to this thing, especially if they're reporting on it in the same way.
Absolutely, right? So that if you're seeing it from different perspectives, like the information can be, in research, we have a term for that, triangulation,
Right?
right? So if we're trying to get as accurate information as we can, we'll often do either a variety of methods or a variety of populations, just to see, hey, does this approximate something that we can rely on? So I think we have to do the same thing with our information sources, right?
Yeah.
But also I think that really prepares us to talk to a variety of people, right? And which is something that's kind of missing these days, where like we tend to just talk to people that have our the same beliefs and so on, and
Right.
sometimes
Well,
that
the echo
feels really
chamber.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
feels
echo
good,
chamber,
right?
like you were talking about. Yeah.
But in order to have a well functioning society, we need to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
So that's why I
Yeah.
love UDL, right? UDL really encourages us to think about this in terms of like we provide information in a variety of ways. We use a variety of communication methods. We seek out different people, right? Because that enriches our lives. And
Yeah.
so,
Increases our designs, makes our designs more accessible, and accessible in the sense of accessibility, but also in the sense of access to others from different perspectives or different mindsets, or it brings about this idea of this real collaboration that happens, or this real coming together, this real inclusion that is so very important. Inclusion of just human beings, right? Like I might think differently than you, Luis, right? And thankfully that I do.
yeah,
That's great,
yeah,
because we find a respectful way to chat with each other and talk about those ideas.
that's where the richness comes from, right? When we're able
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
kind of close those divides and really create something new that really has our varying viewpoints and so on. So, I love that in some ways, many ways, UDL Guidelines 3.0 really addresses a lot of this.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what I love about what's built into it. It is about what are you bringing to the table, right? Like what current, like I always think about our interactions as investments, right? So if I'm a teacher in a classroom and I want students to do something, I'm asking them to invest in that. Well, if we take that a little bit further, investment is about having the right currency to invest. So if I'm only asking for one type of currency, like I'm only asking for you to come from one perspective, then I have shut out everybody else that may have a different currency that they could invest. And when that happens, of course they don't really care about it anymore, right? Because they can't get access to it because I'm asking for the wrong currency, which is just my one view, or a view that is accepted by majority, right? And I think that's one of those big pieces that's been built in to the 3.0 guidelines, is that we are now asking we're asking educators, we're asking students, we're asking anybody and everybody to evaluate what we're asking for people to invest when they come into learning, or they come into conversation or spaces or whatever it is, and do they have the currency to do that? And if they don't, how do I change it so that I can accept all currencies,
I
right, to
love
make
that.
that investment?
That is a great metaphor, analogy. I don't know. I get those confused, but
Yeah.
whatever it
Hey,
is,
once in a while I get them. Once in a while.
that was beautiful, Brian. No, but it's UDL 3.0. It's really about building
Yeah.
community, right? Because learning is a communal activity, it's a social activity, and part of that is we need to give people the tools to, not just take in information, but like evaluate it and make sense of it and do that with others, right? So I love this. I love the way that this conversation is going.
Yeah.
And at the beginning here, you mentioned like, why is it so easy? Why does it happen so easily?
Right.
And again, it's emotion sometimes, right? And I think you mentioned video, and so this
Yeah.
is something that we need to be on guard against, because it used to be just memes. That used to be primarily text, or somebody would post something. I'm old enough when there were discussion boards.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember them.
But now it's often a video that's posted, and like you said, sometimes it's not even people in the video, right? It's
Right.
an
But it
avatar.
looks so real.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
like that's cool, and it's cool, creative. And like I think that's the other side of it. There's a double-edged sword, right? Because it is this cool tool that is publicly available for people to create and find their artistry with limited funds and maybe limited exposure, and they just get in and they innovate. There is a definitely just a dope side to that, right? But then the other side of it is our intention in using it.
yep, yep, yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, like I'm on a project that I work on when we have to create a series of videos, and it would take us months to be able to
Sure.
create those videos, because hiring talent, setting up the facilities, getting the equipment ready,
Editing, like all
editing,
of
which
those
is
pieces. Yeah.
which we know all about that because we do a podcast and videos and so on.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to just take advantage of some of the time saving opportunities that things like AI bring. But then there's a danger there, right? So I recently
Hmm.
saw a news story where there's a court. I forget which state it is. It's out west. I want to say Arizona, but don't quote me on that. And
Right.
the court is now using videos to put out like summaries of like what's happening at the court.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is in some ways, I saw this news story. That's great for them in the sense that they're able to get out more information and
Mm-hmm.
maybe put it into a more engaging format, right? Because, reading
Yeah.
legal updates not necessarily the thing that gets you all excited. But at the same time, how it could be potentially be very easy for somebody to create a dupe, right? Or what we call a deep fake. And as we've talked about, like things can spread really quickly. And sometimes by the time we get the accurate information out, the damage has already been done, right? People have mobilized and so on. So,
Yeah. Because it happens so quick, it spreads like wildfire. Because everybody has the access to information right within their hand, right? Like, I mean, that's since we have the internet, and we've had the internet for 30 plus years. Since we've had that, like somebody broke a hole in the wall of information, and like
yep.
we came running in, and now we can just snag it and grab it and run away with it. What we didn't do is we didn't set up a scaffold to kind of look at that, right? And that's what literacy is now. Like that's what digital and informational literacy are. Is they're the scaffolding to evaluate, not just take that information and run with it. And we didn't do that. Like that's the big missteps we make in technology, is that we don't think about like what are the supports and resources that we need in place for everyone to start looking at this. We just want to create the new cool thing, the new shiny thing with it. And there's something cool about that. There's something really innovative about that. But like when we're talking about our students, I have a daughter that's 19, she's going to be 20 in like 2 months. Yes, I'm that old, folks. But like she's entering into a world, my son too, who's also, he's finishing up his, he wants to become a political analyst. So you and my son should probably talk, Luis. But like, they're entering into a world where the level that they have to sift through is so much more than I had to. Even today, it's so much more. Like me sifting through it and them kind of being inundated over and over, and how much time they spend. And so I don't know, man. I guess I got the question of like, should we teach digital literacy in schools? I think the obvious answer is yes. But the other question then to me would be, why isn't it a more prominent feature in our curriculums?
That's a good question. And the thing is, I think digital literacy, it's not something that should be taught apart from like other subjects, right?
Yeah.
Whether it has to be integrated into, if you're in the humanities, if you're in the social sciences, if you're in science, right? This it just needs to be incorporated, almost like we've done with, or we try to do anyway. I don't know how well we've accomplished it, but with technology, right? Where this is just part of the way that we do things, right? That digital literacy is part of each of these different areas, and I think like I could see, like if you look back in over the last 20 years in our history. How many times has an uproar been created over a recording that we heard? Like somebody on audio, a politician or a public figure, or a video, right? That they were seen doing something. In the future, well, not even in the future, I think we're there already. We're going to be faced with like, oh, that recording could have been created by AI. That video could have been created by AI. So we're going to have to really step up, our digital literacy practices, myself and you included, right? Because we're part of that generation. I mean, I've made mistakes myself, right? Where like I've just seen something online and shared it without second thought. Now I really do try to tell myself, wait a few hours before you react, and then react to it.
Well, that's it, right? Like it's just so immediate, and you can just react whenever you want. That it becomes just super easy to do that, right? And we are emotionally driven creatures, and so that's what we do. We hit the send button or the like button or the can you believe this button, whatever it may be. And yeah, I've sent stuff out, and I'm like, ooh, I better walk that back. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize I reposted this thing, and it's absolutely false. And then you have that kind of that societal kind of embarrassment, right? Of like, ooh, what are people going to think? Like, this is, now that I look at it, it's obviously fake, or it's obviously doesn't make any sense. But I sent it in the moment, and now I sent it to all my friends or followers or whatever,
Right.
right?
I've done that a couple of times, and I went
Yeah.
back and said, "Hey, I'm sorry." And I think that's okay too. That creates a space where we can actually have a deeper conversation
Hmm.
about what the topic is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So sometimes I know it's not that easy to say I'm sorry. I shared something that, now that I think about it, wasn't reflective of my ideas, or something that I considered really deeply. And people often, the one good thing about the age in which we live in is that things tend to have like a very short lifespan.
Yeah, that's true too.
So
Thankfully, thankfully,
yeah.
right?
So they're not going to hold it against you a month or a year from now. But I
Right.
think, especially if like the body of your work, because that's the thing. You started by talking about trust and
Hmm.
so on at the beginning. So people over time develop a trust in you, and I think if the body of your work really give provides that trust, that space for trust, then I
Yeah.
think just saying I'm sorry and sort of sending out a uh, I don't know, forgiveness
Yeah.
response could be
Well, I think it's
helpful.
intention again, right? Like in that case, in the case where I posted something that was absolutely wrong and I had to walk it back, that's misinformation, right? Again, my intent was not to deceive or manipulate or any of those things. It's just information I thought was really interesting. And then upon further investigation, I'm like, maybe not, right? And as long as you have that integrity and you can come back and you can say, I put this thing out and I got to tell y'all, it's not, it's not it. Like I messed
Yeah.
up. I think that people are very forgiving of that or can be very forgiving of that. And I think that so we offer grace in so many things, in so many ways to people when we see them face to face. But online, we don't. And I think that that's one of those skills that I would love for everyone to kind of learn. But if we're talking specifically about students, I would love for students to learn, of course, critical thought and currency and understanding those things, but also understanding grace and saying, okay, there's this balance between personal integrity and personal accountability, and me giving you grace to kind of find those things, right?
Oh, I love that. Grace. Such a powerful, short word, but very powerful, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We need to receive some grace and also give some grace, right?
hmm,
So,
yeah,
another word that comes to mind is compassion, right?
yep, for sure.
That we are all trying to swim in this vast world of information, and we will make mistakes from time to time. But it's how
Yeah,
you respond to those mistakes, and that's important. So,
yep.
we talked about this in the past, and you shared a tool or a framework with me that
Mm,
has to do. I think the conversation was around AI, because AI is a big part of this.
it's
Since
huge,
AI
right?
allows us to create more and more
Yeah.
information. So, what was that framework that you shared with me? Because I found it really helpful, and I think others will as
So
well.
all right, I got to tell you, like it's a Brian Dean frame. Well, it's not designed by me, but it's actually used in. It was first used in like looking at design elements and how we design things for humans in every day, and then it was kind of adapted to different things. But it is the CRAP framework. That's CRAAP, the CRAP framework, and I had to fall in love with it, right? I mean, it's just great to be able to
Of
say
course.
in an academic sense. I want you all to follow crap. But what it really stands for is it stands the C. The C stands for currency. R is relevance. The first A is authority. The second A is accuracy, and then the final P, the P in crap, is purpose. And it's you can if you look it up, you can find a bunch of places. There's a bunch of great articles on Jotbot about it. But really, what it's asking for is like when we talk about currency, we're looking at how old the source is. Is it relevant like, is it an expert or is it somebody at least in the field of what they're talking about? So like a source from a few years ago that is written by a blogger about mapping the human genome, and they have no experience in science whatsoever. Well, it has low currency,
Yep.
right? But the same thing could be said for, even if that was written today, right, by somebody that doesn't exist in that field, like, it has a lower currency than somebody who maybe wrote something 10 years ago, but they were part of, they were part of the genome mapping project. Well, all of a sudden that currency goes up. So we have to kind of evaluate those things, and there's never a solid target, but there are goalposts that we can look at. Something that's written recently and is from somebody in the field of whatever you're researching or whatever you're reading, that probably makes a lot of sense, right? Like, that probably has a high currency. Then the other one is relevance, and that's, it's more about, does the information directly answer my question or offer relevant details to it? And sometimes a source just doesn't really have a lot of valuable background, or it doesn't really impact what I'm reading. But in some cases, like, it might send me off on a tangent that actually is a really great one, right? So it's really, how does it apply to what I'm looking for? And does it directly apply to it, or does it lead me down like a pathway that helps me discover it or look at it, more intently? Authority, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. It's the author's full name. It's not at such and such. It's the author's full name and their credentials. And especially if we're looking at scholarly articles, I want to know their credentials and their affiliations and what that means. I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Luis? I
No.
kept going.
Right on. Keep going.
All right. And then in that is the analysis, right? There's this other part of the analysis, and kind of weighing those other pieces. And then finally, there's, there's accuracy. You look for factual errors, inconsistencies, misleading claims, those sorts of things. And then finally, the purpose. And I think this is the one that kind of gets to that intention, or that intent, right? If the source, like, consider the source type. If it's a news article or academic journal, then that means something, different than if it's a blog post or it's a top 10 from BuzzFeed or something. Not that I don't like my top 10s from BuzzFeed. I got to figure out what's the best way to live my brat summer. But also know that I'm not going there if I want to look into educational theory, right? Or theory of change, or, I'm not going there for that. Is the information intended to inform? Is it intended to persuade? Or is it just entertaining or selling me something? Like, those things are all things that we have to look at objectively. And when you put that framework in place, whether it be through AI or information that we get online or an article that we read, all of a sudden it starts to open up and key, right? And gives us a bigger perspective into what that is. And so I think that, I use the crap analysis with any things that I'm reading. I use it with thinking about, like, how do I help guide students in their use for AI prompting or evaluating AI outputs? Like, what is this? What is its intent? If its intent is to entertain me, well, then I'll just be entertained. But if it's trying to sell me something, all of a sudden it's trying to get at my wallet. I'm going to pay attention to it differently. I'm going to evaluate it differently.
Yeah, the intent is really important. To consider. I think we've highlighted that a few times, and when we think about, we used to use the term digital literacy, and now we're using the term AI literacy, right? And there's some overlap between those two terms, because with AI, like I said, we can create lots of new sources of information and communicate in lots of different technology-enabled ways, right? So we want to make sure that we have a framework like this one. So, like I said, stop, reflect, and then act. And something
That's
like
right.
crap can really be part of that reflection, right?
Right? Crap can save your life, man. Crap can save your reputation.
So I know we want to make sure we can go on and on with this conversation.
Oh, for sure.
It is a broad topic, but we do want to, again, we've given you a couple of tools, a couple of frameworks. You can learn more about them in the show notes. But also, we can help at CAST. We have some resources, and I know, Brian, you've been working on a course that kind of touches into digital and AI literacy. So you want to tell us a little bit about that as we wrap up?
Yeah, I just published it last night at about I think I published it at about 11:30 because it was due to release today.
Congratulations.
So yeah, thank you. So it was almost like, no, you know what I was going to say, it's almost like giving birth, but I have no idea. So I it's an AI literacy mini course. Well, it's an AI mini course, and we're really trying to coin that phrase or that idea of assistive intelligence and not just artificial intelligence. Assistive intelligence, as in how do we use it as a tool? So this mini course goes through UDL, it goes through accessibility and AI, but it also goes through the basics of generative AI and what that means, and then the basics of prompting. It's not going to make you a prompt engineer, but it's going to give you some ways to look at how do I set up prompts or how do I help my students set up prompts. And then we have a huge piece that is around just that AI literacy and digital literacy and talks about, well, what do we need to be on the lookout for and how do we look for it? And then how do we help our students look for it? So that just becomes kind of second nature. And that course is launched now, and you can go to our CAST Canvas or you can go to our CAST website and you can go and check it out. And I hope that everybody likes it. There's lots of cool things. I will tell you this, full transparency, because I think this is important too. Full transparency about 30% of the course creation, not the writing of information, but the course creation in the sense of like some interactive activities, things like that, and some of our prompts are AI. And I thought it was important because not only do we mention it in the course, but I think it's important to just be upfront and transparent about the fact that we did use AI. It's not a crutch. It's not cheating if used appropriately.
Yeah, I've done a few presentations where I've shared plain language definitions, and I've been pretty transparent. I use AI to create this plain language definition.
Yeah.
I think the more transparent we can be, the more helpful we are in providing these scaffolds and for people, to evaluate, because that's going to be a big part of it. Is this a real video, or was this video created with AI?
Right, and I tell you if it is or isn't. I will tell you if it is or isn't in the course.
Yeah, so whatever we can do to provide that transparency, I think that's a big part of what we need to do going forward. I have hope. I think policies and thinking around this will catch up with it eventually, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
So just know, everybody, we are here to help in whatever ways we can by providing tools that really add to the conversation in terms of digital literacy and, more importantly, AI literacy these days. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. But any final thoughts, Brian? Because again, we could go on for
we could go on forever. I just again want to plug that UDL Con is in about a month and a half. So if you haven't bought your tickets, you can go ahead and check those out and get to those on our CAST website. You can also check out all the courses that we just started to put out. June 2nd is a big release date for us. So there are I know that I have like 7 courses or so that I put out. I know that Workforce is putting some out. I know that we have some mini courses for parents. We have courses on UDL and literacy in general, UDL and math. I mean, we've just got a ton. I would go and check those out, and you can check them all out at cast.org.
And what a better time, right? Summer is a great time, whether you're at the beach, at the park, wherever you may be. That you want to catch up on some of your professional learning, there's lots of options there in the spirit of UDL, right? Some self-guided, some facilitated, and so on.
That's right.
We keep the door open. We invite you in.
Right. And, Louise, I got to tell you, man, I'm pretty proud of this feature in the AI literacy course. I've hooked it up with Notebook LM from Google,
nice.
So that you can all the information can get pulled into that, and then you can pull down the whole course if you want as a podcast.
Wow, awesome. So check that out. If you haven't learned about Notebook LM, it's a tool from Google that really allows you to use audio to your benefit. I've been using it myself to get some audio summaries of content. So awesome. I can't wait to see that model. So
it's cool.
Thank you so much, Brian. It was so great to have this conversation with you. And we miss Kelly. Kelly,
we do.
miss you. We do?
We do.
We do. No, we definitely miss you, Kelly. And I'm sure the audience misses you. And look forward to having you on the next episode.
Just remember, everybody, peace, love, and belly rubs.
I'm going to go and give my dog a belly rub now.
There you go.
That will bring down my blood pressure and it's be like, everything is right in the world. So
all right.
Go forth and be inclusive. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Learning Experience Podcast. We are so glad you're a part of this conversation.
And if you're like me and today's episode sparked some ideas or got your brain flowing, well, just remember, there's so much more to explore out there.
And remember that CAST is leading the way when it comes to accessibility, workforce innovation, professional development, and research.
So visit cast.org to dive deeper. That's CAST.org, and keep learning with us.